Okay, now that happens also to be where the C string shape is. And by the way, the blues note for the blues key is always on the D string shape. So here's the C string shape. Okay, here's the C string shape. Here's the D string shape. Pentatonic, we're only looking at that bottom part of the S3S, but the diatonic, but we're not playing the fourth. But that's the D string shape. It's always on the D string shape for root key of the blues, because there's one pentatonic shape above the root key of the blues. So again, let's keep in it before we keep out of it. And we can choose anything on this one diagram. We can look at the E. We can look at the E box. Okay, so what are we looking at when we look at the E box? Okay, let's choose a nice E color. I'm going to go with like a yellow, because E encaged is a root thing. So yellow's my root color. So you notice this is a yellow color right here. I'm going to try to make the square big enough so we don't block it out, block out other stuff. So here's our E, right? Root 2, 3, 5, root 6. So this is our S2L. In root. Here's our E in root. Now what's the problem? Nothing. The blues note is on the C string shape. Okay, and then of course we do, if we want to do a nice diatonic, I could just go like this with the E box, because the E box is so easy. Okay, so it's the whole box there. But when we go up one pentatonic in E, here's E, here's G, we get to the G shape. Now we're going to want to do a G shape, but remember one thing about the E shape, in caged, we've got a big old fret nut there in the middle of the E cage. Whereas if we're looking at the C cage, 3, 4, 5, the fret nut would be here. If we're looking at the A cage, 5, 6, okay, the fret nut will be here. Okay, we're looking at the G cage. You can see the fret nut right there left over from some diagram. But the E cage, the fret nut is up 1. So that's just a peculiarity, but that's the way that it works. And then the D cage, the fret nut is right here. Okay, and the C cage once again. So those are our fret nuts. So when we have our fret nut here, we're going to start the root here. Now when we go to the G, okay, we're going to want to start that G. Where are we going to want to start that G? Be like, where's the C string shape? Right here, 3, 4, 5. So it's, alright, so it's on the C string shape. Here's our 3, 4, 5. Remember I told you a big part of the E cage is really kind of sunken. You know what I'm saying? So the fret nut's like right down the middle there. You would think that. Now when you want the modal E cage, then we would have a fret nut that would be right down here. Okay, that's when you want to play it modally. But we're doing caged. So caged, we want the Aeolian cage right here. So we get the long. So we've got E. Okay, we're not going to play it necessarily pentatonically. We're going to more or less just, I'm going to go an octave, whole octave down here and do the E here. Okay, so we're going to do the E, and then we're going to go to a G shape from that root. And this works out really good because you got your E shape, you got a fret nut here. That's why you only get half of that E shape. You're really missing something down here. We go to the D Pent Blues. And then there's our S3S, right? Our S3S is right there for the G. It's right here. And there's our blues note. Okay. This chart pretty well. This just makes it easy to actually play without going up here and looking where everything is, you know. But this is a root diagram here. Okay, root key of the blues shadow equals root pent key plus the next cage, and it also is its own shape. It's a shadow shape. So here we go G to A, but the shadow is a G shadow, and it's up here. Okay, because we start our G down here, and then we start our shadow there. So, in other words, without it being exact, where these labels are the exact intervals, this is, I already know what the intervals at this time are. So if I want to play the E blues, it's like, because I got, it's going to go to the C shape for the fifth. Okay, it's going to be a half C shape. So on top of that, I'm going to do a shadowed C shape. Okay, and the position of that blues note is in the same place, my friend, right here. Shadowed C right here, it is on the third. So let's try that again. Yeah, it was the third string. I was kind of, sorry, my bad there. I thought it was the second. So that's pretty much it for chart 540. Now I want to talk about 541 because I saw a Steve Stein video. It really inspired me. And it's really the way that he words it. The A minor pentatonic is really the shadow key. It's the shadow key. So that was wonderful that I found that out, but I had to explore that on piano, and we'll see what happens here. So let's say we have the root key of the blues here, and I arranged it so that the root key of the root pent key, it's blues pent key. This is a B here. This is the blues pent key. I arranged it so that the blues pent key is going to be the key of C on the piano. So that corresponds to the root key of the blues being in the key of A. Okay, so we have A7 here. All right, now if I just play a C pentatonic scale, it would go. See how boring it is by itself? But if you play it over if you play an A7 over it, and then you just start that Pents scale from the sixth. Right, so we're right here. We're starting that Pents scale from the sixth, so it goes root 2, 3, 5. That's what we're doing. 6, root 2, 3, 5. Okay, we play that over an A7, which is root in the key of A is root 3, 5. This is the major seventh, but we're going to do the dominant seventh. I didn't label that, but that would be the dominant seventh. This is what we come up with. that's doing the same root minor Pent scale, but you can take that to the 4th. So let's try it again. That's the 4th, and then the 5th would be the E7. I'm going to take it to this. It's just a G7 pentatonic. 5, 6, 7, 2, 3. But remember, the 7 isn't labeled because this is 1. Okay, 1 is root 2, 3, 5, 6. 2 is 4. 4 isn't labeled either. 5, 6, root 2, and 5 is 5, 6, 7, 2, 3. So where is the, let's first find the root blues note. The root blues note is where the blues note should be, is the flatted 5th. So let's look at A here. We've got root 2, 3, flatted 5th, well 4, flatted 5th, 5. So we've got, just like that. Here's our A. Anytime you hear the little trill, I'm just slipping off the blues key, or you can do a little trill there. All right, you can use it as an in-between note. So that's what's going on here. With, you know, I had to make the blues Pent key the key of C here. So we got, and then we'll go to the F with the D7.